All right. Hello, everyone. I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Tabitha Israel, and with me I have my Macklem crew. I have Mark, Elijah, aka Young Activist. And we're just going to kind of get into our organization. And we have a PowerPoint that we prepared for everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. And yeah. So,
hello, hi everybody. I apologize. I'm the MC for the event today. I was just actually helping somebody get connected to the session here. Don't want to interrupt too much. Just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping, just so that we can get you guys set off right. I want to thank everybody again for being part of the session today. So Tabitha, Mark, and Jeremiah, I want to make sure that you guys are set up for success. So I'm just going to briefly just kind of give a little housekeeping for everybody who's attending today, and then I'll hand it off to you guys so you'll be able to continue your presentation here.
I am so sorry. I did not know what was going on. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm emceeing for myself. So
I've been managing calls, and a lot of people have been trying to get on the platform. It's tough for people because you have to create a profile to log in. It's very unfamiliar to folks because we usually do in-person events. So, So thank you so much. Just want to say, I'll be brief so you guys will get as much time as you want in the presentation here. So, so just want to welcome everybody to Make a Culture Move. My name is Eric Moore. I'll be the MC for tonight. Just some technical housekeeping, just to be brief. In this webinar, all of the attendees will be muted, and the presenters and their slides. You can find the chat box down at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can select all panelists if you have any technical issues. You can also chat to everyone in the group. And the way you would do that is by selecting all panelists and attendees. Something to keep in mind that since the presenters can't see your smiling faces, feel free to show some love in the chat during the session. Feel free as well as they're beginning, if you want to chime in, tell us which city and state you're from. We'll be able to see that as well. And throughout the session tonight, just feel free, pose any, if you have any questions you want to answer, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box that's at the bottom of the chat feature. The chat feature is separate, it's at the bottom of the Zoom feature here. Our presenters will answer as many as they can at the time that they're able to. So again, just want to say thank you and welcome to everybody for joining. Just want to say thank you to Jeremiah, Tabitha, and Mark, and want to hand it off to you guys as well. I will just monitor the questions, make sure I can support you guys however I can.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll do this again. So again, my name is Tabitha Israel. I'm here as one of the panelists for Make a Culture Move, aka Macklem, Make a Chess Move. We're one of the subcategories of Make a Chess Move. If you guys would like more information about what we do and what our organization represents, we'll get into that a little bit more in our presentation. With me, I have Young Activist, aka Elijah Judah, and Mark. We also have G, and we have Miss Omni also in attendance. So without any delay, I'm just gonna kind of hop right into our presentation. And yeah. Oh, and also if you guys have any questions or anything, please put them in the comments, because we love to interact with our viewers and stuff, because it kind of creates a dialogue, and it's just good to have. So yeah. So let me get this present. Okay. So passing it to Mr.
Hi, hopefully everybody's having a wonderful, edifying, and fulfilling day. My name is Elijah Judah, also known as Young Activist, and we at Macklem / Make a Chess Move or Make a Culture Move is about being able to build young leaders and understand and make better move choices in life when it comes to decision-making on life, decision-making on relationships, and of course, decision-making on anything you want to do in life, because our desires is what we need, especially when it comes to the Black community. So we're gonna go into who is Macklem. So first and foremost, Macklem is a nonprofit organization based in the heart of Denver, Colorado. And our mission statement is to develop tenacious leaders, tenacious learners, compassionate leaders, and ethnically driven critical thinkers. We work to reteach common sense to youth from ages 8 to 26 through skill sets of chess to push against the schools to prison pipeline. COVID has allowed Macklem to maneuver towards different strokes. And not only that, but what we also have to understand is we have several different streaming podcasts, all focused around things that plague the Black and Brown community today. For example, on Mondays and Fridays, we have our sister Tabitha, Israel, and G, and Mark, who actually go on and speak on Black and Brown issues that are going on all throughout the community of pretty much everywhere in the world. And not only that, we want to make sure we do first and foremost is to make sure that we are impacting people and being the best examples we possibly can, because we have to always, like Philip Douglas says, make our next move our best move. Because if we can make our next move our best move, we'll make sure that we do better, we'll think better, and we make sure that we prepare better in our lives. At Macklem, we are focused on encouraging youth to think multiple moves ahead in life, as they would in the game of chess. Make a Culture Move focuses on encouraging our people of color, to change what we expect, allow, and promote in our communities. We are all Black empowerment. We are all for Black empowerment and all against Black destruction. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we empower our people to educate and learn, because the best way to hide a secret from, this is one of my favorite quotes, the best way to hide a secret from Black men is put it in a book. So if we're educated and understand how to empower our communities, and we understand how to work together, we'll see more impact when it comes to relationships, like I said before, when it comes to family models, when it comes to single parent households being improved, because that's what we're trying to prove at Macklem, and make sure that students understand the better examples. And that's why we are in the school system and being those examples on and off social media as well. Yeah, well, I'm going to end up passing it to my sister Tabitha Israel, where she's going to be speaking on sexual health and the improvements on what we can do when it involves sexual health. And so let's get it. Let's make our next move our best move.
Thank you so much for that. So as Mr. Young Activist said, me and my other co-facilitators, aka my colleagues Mark and G, we host a podcast Monday and Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. on our social platform, Make a Chess Move, Make a Culture Move. We mainly focus on, the things that are plaguing our community. And here I have sexual in parentheses, because it's more than just sexual health that affects us. It's the things that we eat, the activities that we take part in that affect us as a people. So as it says, Black sexual health, a mix of racism and toxic culture. So yes. So a little overview, y'all forgive me. English, sometimes I feel like it's not my first language. It's just hard for me sometimes, but let's be real. Black bodies are overexploited and undermaintained by healthcare professionals and Black folks themselves. So a lot of times, when we go to the doctor and stuff like that, we're often treated by people that do not look like us. And because there's this whole stigma behind Black pain, they believe that we are able to tolerate more. And when we say that we're in pain, a lot of times that's not taken literally. It's like we're kind of over exaggerating, and that's not often the point. And that all stems from, believe it or not, slavery, because, think about it. We are whipped and brutalized and all this other stuff with really no treatment for it. So when we say that something's going on with us, it's oftentimes not believed. So yes. In this presentation, we will identify what being Black means in relation to our overall health and the discrimination and or racism that we face in white America in the healthcare field. So that's pretty straightforward. So being Black in America. While being Black in America gives people of color a sense of pride, knowing that we have overcome slavery, Jim Crow, and etc., the experiences of majority of Black Americans is relatively the same. So racial profiling, maybe one or two people in your family have fallen victim to mass incarceration. everybody has that crazy cousin that, never really healed from PTSD or post-traumatic slavery syndrome, post-traumatic trauma disorder and things like that. These are things that plague us as a people, poverty, stuff like that. And if it's not something that's your reality, if you just, as it says, it doesn't say the minority, because that's mainly the minority of our community that's doing well for themselves, but it's the majority of our community where, obesity, hypertension, and things like that affect that specific population, which is the majority. Being Black in America means the lack of opportunity, systematic and systemic racism, looking for help and oftentimes not getting it, being subject to food deserts. We often do not get the nutrients that we need, which impacts our health. Super true. Food deserts are something that's created around us. If you look at most ghettos and stuff like that, you have to outsource in order to get foods that are actually beneficial for you, such as like Whole Foods, Sprouts, natural grocers, things like that. And I don't know how many of you guys live in actual Denver, but if you go to the east side of Denver, which is known as, the 5 Points, things like that, before it got gentrified, even now, the only place I know to get food over there is Safeway, and most of the food over there is horrible. There's no organic options or anything like that. So that's a reality for many of us, which overall really does affect our health, but it also affects our mental health. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. So this is a quote that I got off of The Atlantic, and it says, across the United States, Black people suffer disproportionately from some of the most devastating health problems, from cancer deaths and diabetes to maternal mortality and premature births. Although the racial disparity in early death has narrowed in recent decades, Black people have the life expectancy nationwide that white people had in the 1980s, about 3 years shorter than the current white life expectancy. African Americans face a greater risk of death at practically every stage of life. So that's from before the womb to when you actually make it out the womb. So it's like, if you just look at our overall health, I know in my family, diabetes and hypertension, strokes, cancer definitely plagues a lot of us. That's something that, is kind of widespread amongst the races, though, when it comes to cancer, but we're mainly the ones that die from it. So I have a video that I would like to share, and it's just the African American doctor that talks about, our health, the healthcare, and our healthcare in general. So I just entitled my intro to it, "We Down Bad," and it's the Black American Diet. So I gotta unshare my screen and reshare my screen because I actually have to. Y'all forgive me because I'm not the most tech savvy person, and I'm trying to figure this out. Okay. Go here. Okay. Share sound, share screen. Okay, here we go. Whew.
Thinking about the youth population, there's some reports that have suggested that it's possible that this may be the first generation that doesn't necessarily outlive their parents, and that's a very concerning and sort of provoking thought. If we don't reduce risk for future cardiovascular disease, for future diabetes in our pediatric population, in our young adult population, as these individuals grow and mature, as they enter into adulthood, as they enter into the workforce, and they have chronic disease that comes along with them, then that will reduce their productivity. We won't have as healthy members of society. They'll be at risk for developing complications that go along with those diseases. My take on why we should really try to work hard to resolve these issues from an ethical standpoint is that, bottom line is, it's the right thing to do. And I think that a lot of the results that we're seeing now in terms of disparities, if we're honest with ourselves, really is deeply entrenched in the sort of the social, political history of our country. And so I think that we owe it to our creed as a nation, we owe it to our values and our morals that we hold to be true in our country to really make a concerted effort to ensuring that members of our society have equal access to quality health care. So I applied and was awarded one of the pilot grants to look at obesity outcomes in adolescents. And there in Jacksonville, in our city, we have a dense urban core where there's a large percentage of African Americans. It's a complex issue, but we know that there are certainly factors that contribute to obesity rates among adolescents, like there's poor dietary exercise behaviors just across the board. But we've learned that there's a lot of targeting of these age groups by different companies that are really trying to promote their unhealthy products that are nutritionally poor, that are calorie dense to these specific communities. We are identifying high rates of obesity both in the adolescents and also in parent and adult caregivers of the same household, which we refer to as PACs. We've also found that the adolescents and the adults tend to resonate a little bit more with some of the more positive aspects as opposed to the negative aspects of behavior change. So the things that influence their dietary and their exercise behavior tend to stem more from a positive look on those motivators as opposed to really focusing on the barriers. And that was kind of an interesting finding. We think that that may be important as we move forward and thinking about interventions with this group in terms of how we frame the message. I'm learning more about using CBPR, community-based participatory research approaches. We have a community research advisory board at the Mayo in Jacksonville that we sponsor. And so I think that there are some exciting opportunities for us to really improve our ability on the Jacksonville campus to engage with our community in research and really try and impact upon the health and the health outcomes of our community. Mayo Clinic addressing disparities very much falls in line with our mission and who we are as an organization, as the needs of the patient come first, serving as a model for the rest of the nation. And how to provide equitable care to patients from all demographic backgrounds is one of the greatest things that the Mayo model of care can contribute to disparities research.
Cool beans. Absolutely. So that's definitely something that I wanted to kind of touch on is our overall health. Obesity is definitely something that plagues our community, and poor eating choices. Again, it goes back to the whole food desert thing. There aren't that many food that have a high level of nutrients in them that would benefit our children, benefit our people as a whole. And I don't know if Elijah or Mark, if you guys would like to touch on that at all, but that's something I just kind of wanted to bring out a little bit.
To turkey back off of that, I would definitely 100% agree. Not only that, but I know on Colfax in Colorado, they have the Sprouts Market. But we know in that specific general area, that's being gentrified a little bit more heavier than where the east side is right now, where 20th and Clarkson is. So you see a lot of people who walk their dogs, jog in the morning, who are predominantly Caucasian, who are going to, the Sprouts Market because they might have been raised to understand healthier food choices are more important, but it's also way more expensive, right? So we also have to put that into an understanding as well, that when you go to those locations, we might not have the means to be able to go to Sprouts, so we have to go to, a Safeway in order to purchase, some sodas or whatever, just so we can have some form of nourishment. So I believe that when it comes to, the Black and brown community and the high forms of obesity rates that happen, if we understand self-preservation and fasting and a few other different skill sets, you would definitely see more of an improvement on our diets and understanding how to properly spend. Because like I've always said before, Black people don't got a money problem, we got a spending problem. We always spend our money in other people's hands. If we came and spent our money together, then we would be able to have better healthy eating options. That's all I would like to add.
Definitely. Go ahead. Mark, did you have something to say? No? Okay. So yes, thank you so much for bringing that out. I think that, yes, we definitely have a spending problem. I think like over $1 billion, and I may be quoting the number. It's well over $1 million though, between Black people and the things that we spend on as far as like our aesthetics and how we look on the outward appearance, rather than worrying about what's going on inside our bodies, inside our bodies, what we're putting into them, which does affect us. And, because of what we eat, we feed that to our children off of Colorado Boulevard, and I would say off of like Bruce Randolph, that area. Think about it. No, there's no grocery store over there. There is a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and there's like a few gas stations and stuff like that. But and a little bit, if you go a little bit further down, there's like a Starbucks, which that area again is being gentrified. I don't know that many people in that neighborhood necessarily that eat that, but there is like a Carl's Jr. and stuff like that is more appetizing and appeals more to our people, because, you know, fast food, just because it's fast doesn't make it necessarily good for you. So I don't know. Yeah. So getting back into this presentation. Okay. So this one's entitled What We Eat is Related to Our Health. The food we eat gives our bodies the information and materials they need to function properly. If we don't get the right information, our metabolic processes suffer and our health declines. If we get too much food or food that gives our body the wrong instructions, we can become overweight, undernourished, and at risk for the development of disease and conditions such as arthritis, diabetes, and heart disease. I spoke on it a little bit earlier, but my grandmother definitely had diabetes, and it wasn't that she was obese. It was that she wasn't getting the nutrients and stuff like that she needed. A lot of times our communities, women specifically, are plagued with something called Pcos. I forget what the actual breakdown is for PCOS, but PCOS is because PCOS occurs when there's a lack of insulin that your body is actually receiving from the foods that you intake. So I think that once we understand that, we start to think a little bit differently about what we're eating and what vitamins and other nutrients that our body's actually lacking that's causing the PCOS, because there is natural ways for us to reverse that syndrome that's plaguing our community. Again, it's the fast foods. I know something called it's the Alkaline Diet. And I don't know how many of us actually know about Dr. Sebi and the things that he promoted and encouraged in our community as far as having a plant-based diet. But it wasn't just, you know, it's free game. You can eat whatever you want, as long as it's, you know, not moving and has eyes and all this stuff. It's like he had something it's based on the amount of it's the pH of the food that you're actually intaking that does better for your body. And I think we have a question, because I'm looking at it. I see it. And I don't know. I'll get to that in a second. But yes, y'all. Yes. So the next slide. Ooh. So how do we truly feel about our health and our overall well-being? Like, how do we actually feel about that? Do we feel good about that? Is it something that, you know, we're concerned about? And a lot of times it's not something that we're concerned about. And that's something I'm going to touch on. There's a quote that most Black mothers, if you grew up in a predominantly Black household, and even in the brown households, you know, the Hispanic households, this is a fact. We ain't going to the hospital unless we dying. We're not going to the hospital unless we're dying. My mom, God rest her soul, rest in peace, Mom, but she would not take us to the hospital unless there was literally something that it would have to be an emergency, something that needed to be addressed right then. Your lungs you had to have literally coughed out your lungs and you're coughing out blood. That was one of the only ways my mom was going to take me and my siblings to the hospital. And that's horrible. Because we don't go to the dentist enough, our teeth is falling out of our teeth are falling out of our mouth. And dental care is also not something that's really touched on enough in the Black and brown household. I don't know about the brown household, but I could say for most of you know, minorities that are living in poverty, that's not something that we're really worried about. It's like we're worried about how we're going to survive on our day-to-day. So this is just something I kind of wrote out, and you guys could tell me what you think, but Unfortunately, things such as obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, and sexually transmitted diseases and infections and drug addiction are psychological and health hazards that plague the Black community today. We as a people are affected disproportionately more than our white counterparts. But why is this? And I don't know if you kind of have if you have an idea of why that is, or if you want to just kind of throw it out there, Mr. Young Activist, if you want to activate real quick and tell me why you think that is.
Well, since I was put on the spot, the reason why a lot of these different diseases plague our Black and brown communities today, first and foremost, is just because we are uninformed with the proper values in which we should have in our community. If it comes from a spiritual aspect or even really just a common sense aspect. For example, with the sexual transmitted diseases, me personally, I am 100% volunteer on celibacy. I believe that we should wait to marriage. If we do something like that, you could stop a lot of sexual transmitted diseases. Not all of them, but pretty much majority of them you can't stop just due to the fact that you are creating more value when it comes to that, which also prevents single parent households at a higher rate, which also prevents a lot of different other things on top of high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, and of course, drug addiction. A lot of those things can really stop if we just understand better self-value. We read more and understand better education when it comes to our people and our communities. Because when you look at a lot of other communities, although certain things like this happens, one thing for sure, they don't have to deal with it at such a high rate per capita like we do. And the reason being is because we are chasing a dream that's not there because we're asleep. For example, we have a crabs in the barrel mentality when it comes to people succeeding or people doing better for themselves, this, that, and the third, and we have something to say as opposed to encouraging our brothers and sisters to do better, to think better, and to perform better, and making the next move their best move. Because if you can make your next move your best move and make a chess move, it's going to allow a lot of these different things that plague our communities deplete, and you're going to see a lot more improvement.
Absolutely. If there's nothing else.
Actually, I'd like to address the Q&A question. So the question is, just so we all could chime in, cities can provide incentives for grocery stores to locate in food deserts. Are there any current initiatives in play to work with representatives in this way? So offhand, I cannot really think of any. I know there's a few gardens within the 5 Points area, so that kind of helps with some of like the food options per se. You feel me? They grow vegetables, that type of stuff, but I don't think there are any like actual programs that I can name off my head. I don't know if my facilitators can think of any, but
I did want to kind of touch on that a little bit, because as far as like Black, the people that are in these specific areas, the food deserts, a lot of these people, because they're in these areas and because of knowing the condition of our people specifically in those areas, a lot of them are felons, and a lot of them don't really have any political might. You know what I'm saying? They can't hit up the representatives. I know that here in Colorado, that's a thing where it's just been passed recently, where felons can take part in the whole judicial system and being able to vote and things like that, and trying to put their voice out there to get their voice heard by people that are a little bit higher up in the ranking system of our society. But I don't think that that's a feasible thing for them, specifically because of being out of the loop for such a long time. It's kind of like you have a bird in a cage for years. You open the door for the bird to go out. The bird doesn't leave because the bird is only used to going so far, knowing its limitations. It's that bird in a cage mentality that keeps it that way. And plus, most corporations and most companies that do own these grocery stores and do own these businesses, they need a financial incentive to do that. And because a lot of us are living in poverty, there is no financial initiative or incentive to do that, because it's like a lot of people they have a target audience, just like us. Our target audience are those that fall victim to the system. But just like we have a target audience, or our audience that we're specifically trying to reach, so does our so do the leaders and the owners of these larger corporations.
To also take you back off of that, to add on to that question, when it comes to initiatives or representation of adding more healthy food options, when it comes to the east side or the northeast area of Denver, Colorado, they do that all the time. There's businesses being built up all the time. But what we got to understand is these new healthy grocery stores and businesses that are being designed right now in the northeast area is not because of the people who's living here currently. It's the people who are going to be living here 5-10 years from now, which is going to be predominantly white people. You know, so when it comes to the lack of food options or healthy food options, we have to understand that where we're being pushed or where predominantly we are, we need to start pushing now to be able to have more healthy food options in certain areas like that, and then push those initiatives like, for example, in Montbello or South Aurora, like near Sable and Colfax, or different areas like that, or like on the west side where a lot of our brown brothers and sisters are, because that's where we really need it at. This area is being heavily gentrified right now. And with that, you know what I'm saying, we have no economic might to really fight against it as right now, but we can have that for our other communities nearby to be able to push for a stronger and a more healthy community in the long run, because they have this thing planned out 10, 15 years from now. They know what they're doing, man. Let's just be real. But that's all I got to add.
Absolutely. And I just put a few things that play a part in this, which are things such as poverty, miseducation. A lot of, unfortunately, a lot of our youth do not know how to grow anything, as far as like having their own garden and like being able to provide healthy foods for themselves. It's not something that that they have not necessarily that they don't have a knack to do it. It's that it's never been properly introduced to them to learn how to do those things. Societal norms and expectations. The societal norm is to go out and buy food. And as we stated before, the only way that you can actually go out and buy food that's healthy for you, or that have some level of nutritional value, is to kind of branch out and see what's outside of 5 Points, or what's, you know, moving to or going to the better parts of the community. And a fear of experimentation plays a part. And I say experimentation because of the whole Tuskegee experimentations that happened. I would say I'm just going to say a few years back. It's been more than a few years, but I don't have an exact date in mind. But
it started in about the 40s, and then it kept going until about the 70s.
So decades behind. It happened in the 40s, kept going to the 70s. So that's kind of what makes it a lot of people of color a little bit hesitant with getting the whole coronavirus thing. It's because they have experimented us in the past, and that kind of it creates doubt in your mind when it comes to trusting the people that are sworn in to protect you or always have your best interests at heart. You know, it kind of makes you look down upon that particular part of the system. Okay, did I do that on purpose? Go back to that. Okay, so let's talk about sex, baby. All right, so we're getting into that particular portion of the thing. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because there is a video that I'm gonna play in relation to this. It's really discussing sex and the young Black women. So believe it or not, and you know, this is like one of those it's a controversial statement for me to say this, but it's proven it's a statistical fact that Black women are amongst the people with the highest positivity rates for STDs such as chlamydia, gonorrhea, HIV, herpes, all that stuff. And that's a proven fact. So I think that, you know, us as women, men of color, talking about sex and sexual education is something that, isn't done enough. Yes, when I went to high school in Alabama, we had sex ed, like a small little portion of this health class dealt with sex, and it never really went into detail about sex and our best options in order to kind of get away from STDs. So I'm gonna go into this video, y'all. I'm gonna go into this video again. Let's talk about sex, baby. Okay. I'm done. Okay. So I'm gonna try to hit this play button. Hopefully it plays.
Sexual empowerment to me is when a woman can say to her partner, whether male or female, we need to get tested, and there be no negative reaction. There's no argument. There's no pushback, because there's a mutual understanding that sexual health is important.
Ebony empowered.
So today's topic of discussion is going to be about sex. Yes, sex. And I challenge my viewers to open their mind, expand their thinking, and help to promote engaging in healthy dialogue about a very relevant topic, because sex is very important to discuss. Sex is so much more than just the act of engaging in intercourse. Sex encompasses body confidence as well as self-esteem. Sex also contains aspects of sociology, psychology, as well as public health. And in respect to the young Black woman, our ancestral history plays a very important role in our perception of sex, which I will add to the discussion. So my first question to you is, how often are we engaging in discussions concerning sex in a tone that reflects strength, power, and knowledge? If our discussions about sex are largely graphic in nature, filled with explicit narratives, how are we redefining the image of the Black woman? Because within visual media, the Black female body exudes an immense amount of hypersexuality, which predates our early ancestral history. And I figured it'd be extremely important to talk about sexuality in respect to our ancestors and who we are as women now in modern day. Because if you think about it, our ancestors did not have the liberty to explore their sexuality. Sex was not passionate. It was forced upon many women during this time. Sex was gruesome. It was brutal. It was animalistic in nature. And women were frequently subjected to rape. And aside from those gruesome acts, of which women at that time knew to be sex or pleasure to their masters, the Black female body has been susceptible to unhealthy criticism. And I believe that lends to a lot of hesitance to discuss sex. Why can a group that has been so marginalized shy away from talking about something that is so important? There should be no hesitation when discussing sex. I encourage women to explore their sexuality by any means necessary in which your health is at the forefront. It is okay to inquire. It is okay to do research and ask questions. Understand who you are as a woman. Understand your identity, because that plays a large part in how you explore sex. Understand that preventative care is an option and should be an option. It is important to know your resources and know that while sometimes these resources are not as accessible to us, you still should understand that there are organizations geared towards providing the minority community with the necessary tools and information so that when you begin to conduct yourself in any way when you want to have sex, you can do it and be healthy and safe.
Okay. Awesome. That's it. That's all I
to
wanted.
empower themselves by.
Okay, that's all I wanted from that video per se. The reason why I wanted to kind of play that video is because it kind of speaks to the generation today. She's talking about exploring her sexuality, which oftentimes means living a lifestyle of promiscuity, which also exploits and makes you vulnerable to STDs and things like that. As one of my colleagues, one of my brothers, Mr. Young the activist, Elijah talks about waiting until marriage to have sex. I am a big advocate for abstinence because, as we'll get into a little bit later, WebMD talks about how abstinence is one of the only ways to 100% be sure that you're not having sex. And I mean, not having sex, not getting an STD or some type of venereal infection. So this is a question that was asked in the Q&A. It says, how can we address the myth of young Black girls being fast or hot in the ass? This places blame on our vulnerable young girls and sexualizes them. I don't know if one of my panelists want to touch on that, Mr. Okay, go ahead. I see I'm muted.
So being a young Black man, I 100% agree with you that the industry over-sexualizes these Black women tenfold than they ever have in the history of the world, in my opinion, especially when it comes to, the hottest rappers right now, Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, City Girls, what is her name, Saweetie? You got a bunch of these different rappers right now who are all over-sexualized, basically dressed very provocatively and promiscuously because that sex sells. You know what I'm saying? Let's just be real. So they're pushing them high in the industry right now. And a lot of our sisters, because we don't really monitor the music our young Black women and our brown women are listening to, they're looking at these artists, they're looking up to them, and they are copying what they do, especially when it comes to 15, 16, 17-year-olds, when they really start understanding what their bodies are. You know what I'm saying? And they start mimicking those things on social media because we also do not monitor our young daughters and our young girls. A lot of us, some of us do, but not a lot of us monitor what our young daughters is doing on social media. And so then you see this influence and this impact of fast girls, and then you see the the lifestyle of what they're doing. And so through that, you see a lot of these sisters ended up going towards that lifestyle. Like, for example, I have a sister who's who actually used to struggle with prostitution, and it was because of how promiscuous and the different things she was introduced to at a young age that made her believe that she had to go down that path. Now, that's just one path. That's just one path. Many different oppressive paths our young ladies go through. But I truly believe that if we understand what self-value is, and a lot of our fathers stay in the home because that's really important towards the vigilance of a daughter. It really is. If we have those two things happening, you're going to see a lot of our sisters make better decisions and wait a little bit longer before they decide to lay down and reveal their flowers to somebody who might not be worthy of it. If that answers the question.
I think it definitely answers the question, and I guess I'll just kind of follow up and turkey back off of what you said, lammy back off what you said. I think what it is that we have to let our kids know that you do not have to meet society's expectations, and kind of giving them an alternative, positive image, some type of imagery to what they should be striving to be. And that's the thing. A lot of times what happens with our young girls is that we're a lot of parents, unfortunately, because they don't live in a two-parent households, social media and media as a whole raises our children. Television, music videos, these artists' music, and these are their role models. There are no real role models that are set into place to really help our children to strive to do better, be better, and they're and by that way, kind of being a positive example for others. So I think that to kind of go back to the question, how can we address the myth of young Black girls being fast or hot in the ass? We have to honestly look at the real, what's really going on in our community and what's really going on with our young girls. Unfortunately, majority, and I'm just going to say it, majority of them are fast. A lot of them are quote unquote hot in the ass. My little sister, for instance, and I'm not saying that my little sister speaks for all little girls everywhere, and this doesn't speak to the parenting of all parents, but my little sister was at the age of 15, she got pregnant. I mean, at the age of 14, she got pregnant. And at the age of 15, she had her daughter. And because at the age of 14, no young man wants to step up and be like, okay, I'm a father, I'm gonna be there, all this stuff. So she ended up doing it on her own and raising her daughter by herself and reinforcing all those negative attributes that we want to kind of change in our communities. So I get what you're saying with, it being a myth, but it's not a myth anymore. It's a fact. And in order for us to really reverse that, we have to recognize it and try to take steps into being in those young ladies' lives and letting them see that there's a different way to go. As wise men before me have said, train your child up in the way that they should go. The only way that we're going to be able to train them up in the way that they should go is recognizing the problem and keeping them in straightly and keeping them close to us so that we know how we ought to deal with them, because us doing the long arm thing and kind of analyzing them from afar, it's not working. And we need more people to kind of step up and be that role model and to kind of be a little bit more critical of media and change what they're seeing around them, change the narrative for our Black girls. Because this places blame on our vulnerable young girls and sexualizes them. I don't think that it places blame on them, because that blame needs to be placed on them. That blame needs to be put out there.
Well, let me say, our young boys, the young boys, Black boys, are just as over sexualized as the girls, and it's not talked about as much. So to kind of, deflect that myth or change that narrative, the boys have to be, not as over sexualized as well. The sex talk is not the same to young daughters as it is to young sons. It's a different narrative when you're having that sex talk, and it's hard for young girls to be being told one thing, your body is a temple, hold your body sacred. Boys are being encouraged to have sex as early as they feel the need to, and so you have to. It has to be it's a double standard. In order for young girls to understand that sex is a waiting till marriage type of thing, we have to be teaching the boys the same thing, and that's not what happens in society. We over sexualize our girls and our boys, but we don't talk about the overly sexualization of the young boys in the Black and brown community.
Right. And you have a very good point. And I was just speaking to the question because she asked about girls and specifically, but definitely boys are over sexualized. And a lot of times boys are overlooked. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And I know Elijah, you were going to say something.
To turkey back off of that, I agree 100%. I believe that accountability when it comes to young Black men out here being the playboy or that man after they lose their virginity at 15, 16 years old, but the girls looked at as the hoe is a completely
double standard.
Double standard, exactly. It's a double standard towards how we look at society. And I believe that if we actually keep our young Black and brown men and our younger Black, brown women to be accountable and to see that as something that's not good for their life and could lead you down the wrong path, you'll see a lot more healthy relationships within our communities. And I believe that that is one thing that does plague our communities. Also something that nobody really touched on, but I'm going to touch on it because it plagues our girls. 1 in 3 Black girls end up going through this, molestation. A lot of our Black girls end up going through those fast periods because they were touched at a young age, which can influence their sexuality at a young age. And through that, that destroys and plagues our communities heavily because a lot of these Black men aren't being held accountable to it. Or Auntie Gina or Grandpa Ray Ray don't want to put Uncle in prison. So we don't tell them that, you know what I'm saying? And we allow them to go free to where more molestations happen, more rape cases happen, and we don't speak on it. So I believe if we also made sure that we kept our Black and brown older men and women accountable for molesting these young Black girls and Black boys, you will see a lot less over-sexualization because we are being introduced at such a high rate right now to sex, probably more than ever before. So when it comes to the porn industry, which is heavy on why we're over-sexualized, I was introduced to pornography when I was 8 years old. I'm sure a lot of us was introduced to pornography at a young age too, because it's so, it's everywhere. It's just exposure. No matter where you go, it's everywhere. Just like back in the day, you had to go and buy like a Playboy magazine from like the corner store. You had to pay somebody to do that when you was young. It was hard to see sex. Nowadays, you can see it everywhere, and it's 100% free. So if we limit what our children watch and we protect what our children see at a young age when it comes to training up our child in the ways of the Lord, like it says in Proverbs 22:6, if we understand how to properly do that, you'll see a lot of our young men and our young women being understanding self-value at a younger age. If that makes sense.
Definitely, and we got to move on because I'm gonna fly through this last part. I'm just gonna jump straight to the solutions because I'm gonna be honest, I don't got time to be doing the rest of my presentation because it was a lot of discussion. All praises for that though. So just some solutions, because I like to always leave with some solutions. According to WebMD, abstinence is the only way to guarantee that you will not be infected with an STD or STI. A few other recommendations that they suggest, not me, this is not me, is condom usage, regular testing for both parties, and education. So sexual education, regular testing of both parties. I believe in improving all things. So you definitely want to make sure that the other person is also safe before just not jumping into the sack with them. So yes, without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Mark Jonathan. I'm so sorry I'm sorry.
It's all good. So as the title says, we will be jumping into Black mental health. Thank you. So depression. In research studies, Black people have indicated that mild depression or anxiety would be viewed as crazy in their social circles. Many of those interviewed also believe that discussions about mental illness will not be appropriate over or even among families. So we see this a lot. We see this a lot, even in social circles, as the passage says, someone can say how they're sad or just not feeling, 100% today, and then it'll get brushed off or not shown as much attention as it deserves, and what that does is creates this stigma that Black people have to stay solid at all times, when that's just simply not the case. So suicides amongst Blacks in America. In 2018, for the first time in history of such research, the rate of suicides for Black children between the ages of 5 and 12 has exceeded that of white children, and more than a third of elementary schools age suicides involve Black children. So this is, actually 2 people that attempted suicide in high school, and this is talking about ages younger than that. But if we don't catch this early in the early signs of depression and sadness, and then eventually suicide, it can lead to people feeling as if, and it's kind of like Eric Moore said in the chat, you feel me? Being seen as weak is not something that Black people hold over each other. You feel me? We got to stay solid. And if we're not catching this at these early ages, because we do show signs of it, but it's also punished, ignored. But if we keep punishing this idea of not being weak or not showing any vulnerability, it's going to only lead to our ultimate destruction.
Absolutely.
So therapy, only 6.2% of psychologists, 5.6% of advanced practice psychiatric nurses, 12.6% of social workers, and 21.3% of psychiatrists, are members of a minority group.
So I guess I'll just add a comment. It's easier to talk to somebody that looks like you at the end of the day.
Awesome. And So that brings me to the solutions, and it's kind of what Tabitha just alluded to. First, we have to acknowledge and talk through our trauma. And then, which brings me to her point, it's much easier to talk to somebody who looks like you, has been through some of your struggles, or just overall understands what you're going through because they can relate a lot easier. So there are programs that match people of color with therapists of color. You feel me? I think another thing that destroys our community is that we try to force our children into athletics or being a singer or a rapper when there are fields like this that our people need. Oh, yes. I'll get to that in a second, but yes, this is a field that our people need, and it would be a lot easier for someone to open up and then show their vulnerability so that they can eventually rise above that if they can talk with somebody who understands what they're going to. So the link at the bottom, and I apologize that it's so small, is one of the programs that, and it was by a Black woman, that matches a person of color with a therapist of color. That's the entire point of, talking out through your problems. But since we'd rather punish it or, oh yes, could we drop that link in the chat, please? I might have to do that. Oh wait, I can actually do that here. But yes, that will conclude this section. Ultimately, it would be a lot easier for us to talk through our problems with people that look like us, but we have to at first acknowledge and then seek out those programs. And we'll be sure to type that link in the chat for you.
Sarai, you're on mute.
So precious.
Gosh. Oh my gosh, so precious. I can't believe I did that. But yes, the question that is in the chat Q&A chat, it says, what are your thoughts that a lot of Asian areas like Chinatown, Koreatown, etc. are essentially a lot of ghettos, and traditional grocery stores don't set up there either, but they set up their town corner Asian grocery stores and fresh food restaurants. Can this approach be replicated in other food desert areas instead of waiting for a majority grocery chain? Sorry, I can't read, y'all.
Well, Asians keep their money together. That's why you see so many Asian communities and stuff in, different states. There's Asian towns and stuff. Like in Colorado, we have many different Asian community marts, whatever. But Asians keep their money together. They don't spend their money with anybody else. So that's why it's important to them. It's a part of their culture, and they don't step outside of their culture in areas such as that. So it's very imperative to them that they do keep their money together. So they shop at Asian grocery stores, and they set up certain areas to keep the Asian money circulating through with the Asian community. And Black people need to get on board with that. Quit being so selfish, and we need to keep our money circulating with each other. But Black people don't like to spend money with Black people and do business with Black people. And it's hard to see the vision of being one whole unit because there's so much controversy.
Absolutely. And I think that G speaks to a very good, her point is on point. I think that what it is, slavery really did a number on us as a people, you know what I'm saying? And if you know anything about the Willie Lynch letter, it literally pins one Black person or a person of color against another person of color. And instead of us recognizing that we're all in the same, we're all being destroyed both mentally, physically, and literally, we see the fault course we see the fault in one another. We don't want to come together to make moves with each other. Again, if you think about all the money that is distributed throughout the United States, it's millions of dollars just from Black people alone, because we unfortunately are the driving force. We're the workers. We're the workers that keep America afloat. It's our revenue that keeps America afloat. We take the money from the system and we put it right back in, we place it right back into the system, but we're not putting it in, we're not investing in each other. We're investing in somebody else's business. So
we spend our money to make white people's dreams come true rather than focusing on making the Black community better. We have to heal. We have to heal the Black community before we can even grow. Like, we're so broken right now. It's like you can't grow when you're so broken. So it's like we have to focus on healing, and then we'll be able to grow.
Right.
To even turkey back onto that with a few more statistics, about $1.7 billion a year is spent just within the Black community alone when it comes to businesses. When you look at hoods and ghettos, we don't necessarily have a lot of infrastructures that are owned by us outside of maybe barbershops and salons. You know what I'm saying? So being able to create infrastructures outside of those manufacturing things, because we do need our hair done. We need to make sure that, we got a good lineup and everything to be presentable, but we also need to make sure we got clothing stores that are actually designed for us, or we got food stores that we could actually go to. When you go to other Black communities, when you go to other Black communities, like outside of Colorado, you might see that here and there, but, you still have to go to a higher up power that's owned by, somebody who doesn't look like us just to even get that food distributed. But it's a start. You know what I'm saying? So being able to have something of our own when it comes to our communities, so we can be able to spend that $1.7 billion just within our communities. Honestly, if we spend $100 million within our communities, you see a big difference. And a lot of us, want to claim the block and be on the block and claim our communities, but we don't really own the infrastructure there. So being able to understand how real estate works and understand how credit works, if we can understand those simple processes, which are not taught in the education of these white supremacist schools that create these school to prison pipeline systems for our young Black boys and our young Black girls, if we understood credit and be able to build something for ourselves, you'd see more improvements. That's why when you go to these Chinatowns like G was going into, they understand infrastructure and how to build for their own, because they have the integrity of who they are. Black people do not have that. We don't know who we are. We have complete ignorance to who we are. And that's why it's hard to have value in oneself. So until we understand who we are and having value in oneself, then you might see improvement in infrastructure. That's why value is very important. Education is the biggest piece to have that, to start that foundation. Instead of building your foundation off of sand, you build it off of a rock. And being able to create self-value within education is important. But that's all I wanted to add.
Absolutely. So many good points. But I know that we're pushing it a little bit over time. But I do want to bring it back to Macklem as a whole. Hopefully this thing shares. But oh no. Let me move this out the way. Okay, I can't. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just gonna move that. So this is our web. Oh my gosh, what happened? Okay, so this is our can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our website, www.makeachessmove.org. That's where you can find our website. We highly encourage people to donate and to help keep Macklem. We are Macklem, and Macklem is us. We have our workshops every 3 to 6 months, maybe a little bit further out than that. But stay on our website. Follow us on all of our social medias. It's under Macklem 303, and we also have our Make a Culture Move Macklem page on Facebook. Definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Again, makeachessmove.org is where you guys can find us. I'm gonna go ahead and put that link in the comments.
And also, if you guys want to help and support more, make sure you definitely donate, because the support and the change is real. So if you can be able to do that, that's an important value and asset that can really help us prevent school to prison pipeline and making our next move our best move.
That was amazing. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the session. It was very insightful and honestly, real conversation about solutions, and just being honest about the situation that a lot of us are dealing with. So I just want to say thank you guys for your authenticity, for real. And thank you, everybody, for joining the session. I know we went a little bit over time, but just the next steps really is to make sure that if you enjoyed the session, make sure that you rate it and within the mobile app, or if you're on the web browser, you can have a like button. Let us know how you feel about the session. And then just letting you know that right now we'll be in break until 7:35 when the next round of sessions begin. So feel free, if you're still here, go ahead and look in the chat for those links that they dropped. Otherwise, you can exit the Zoom meeting and go back to Hoova, and for there you can look at the next round of meetings. So again, thank you to the presenters, and thank you for everybody for attending, and we'll hope to see you in the next round here.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. We appreciate it.
Y'all, Macklem out there.